Hey guys, it's Joe from American Muscle, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the Cervini 4-inch Cowl Hood Unpainted, fitting all 18 and newer GTs and EcoBoosts. Now, this is going to be a great option for you if you're looking for one of the most aggressive cowl hoods on the market. That's going to make plenty of room in the engine bay for crazy aftermarket mods, and at the same time, it's going to add to the looks of your S550. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about build quality and design, then we'll dive into some other features. Now, this guy is made out of aircraft grade fiberglass, 4-inch cowl smack dab in the middle. That's going to add a lot of room on top of that motor for a forced induction setup, roots, or a twin screw blower. This is going to give you plenty of room. Won't help much with a centrifugal supercharger, but it is going to make plenty of room for those other setups. It's not all about functionality. However, this thing looks great on any S550. I really dig the cowl hood design, especially on the 18 Plus. Actually, you can see these body lines flow right into the fangs in the grill. I really like that. Looks like it could have came on this Mustang right out of the factory. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and this isn't going to be at fault of the Cervini specifically, but cowl hoods in general, they are going to steal a little bit of visibility from the driver's seat. If that's a worry to you, it might be better to go with a smaller cowl. However, I think with the 4-inch, this isn't going to steal that much, and it's a great trade-off for what this is going to give you in terms of looks. And if you do plan on going with a supercharger in the future, it's great to have that extra space in the engine bay again as well. This does have one feature that I really do appreciate. Back in the olden days, 05 to 9, I had an old S197, and when you did an aftermarket hood on that, you usually had to pair that with a squirter nozzle relocation kit to get those up and running again, or if you didn't go that route, you'd effectively lose that functionality. Not the case with the Cervini cowl. This is going to be able to transfer over all that factory stuff. All the hoses and the nozzles themselves, they're going to mate up with this hood no problem, so there are no squirter nozzle relocation kits needed. All the factory stuff is going to work. And one thing I really like is it has its own hidden channel and basically runs inside of the hood. So if you are doing any crazy engine work, you want your engine bay to look nice and clean, this is going to keep all those hoses nice and hidden inside of the hood rather than held up with push pins on the bottom, and that is a really nice piece of design from Cervini. Also, if you do have hood struts, this will work just fine. If you're using hood struts that you were previously using on your factory hood, you should be able to transfer those over no problem. As long as they interface with the mounting bracket and the fender, you should be just fine. Cervini does offer their own variant of hood struts specifically for their aftermarket hoods, but you can get away with the factory style mounted up to the factory hood. That will transfer over just fine. One thing I do have to mention here is this hood is going to come completely unpainted. We had this painted race red for the video. This is going to come bare fiberglass, no primer. So what that means is you're gonna have to take this to the paint shop, get it color matched to your Mustang. So if you're considering cost, factor that in because it is going to cost you a little bit extra to get this to match. The underside is gel coated, so if you are looking to save a little bit, you can just paint the top side and run with the gel coat on the bottom, but that's neither here nor there. Speaking about price, this is going to cost you right around $750, which isn't bad. One of the cheapest hoods out there for the 18 Plus, includes a limited lifetime warranty as well, and the thing looks amazing. It adds a little bit of functionality with that extra engine bay space as well. All big pluses, definitely well worth the money in my opinion. The install isn't going to be too bad. No modifications required. We are going to be transferring over a lot of factory stuff. We're going to show you what that's like in just a second here. Really easy. I'm going to give it a 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. If you're working fast, this should take you about 45 minutes to an hour tops. So without any further ado, let me show you what tools you'll need and how it's done. Tools you'll need for this install will include a ratchet, 10mm socket, and a set of trim panel removal tools. So over by our 18 GT, getting the hood off is a relatively simple process. It's only held on with about 4 nuts, which makes it really easy to remove. But before we do, we have to unplug our washer jet hose, and that is underneath this heat blanket here. This is held on with a couple of push pins. We're just gonna use the trim panel removal tool to get those out of the way. We're missing a few. There's about 14, but they're all gonna be the same exact process. And with all those out of the way, we can go ahead and remove the heat blanket. So in this shot, you can see the washer nozzle. It's right at this leading edge of the hood. To unpop that, we're just gonna pull down from the front like so. And this is too big to actually thread back up into the hood. So what we're gonna do is pull down the hose here. Spin that around so you can see. I'm just gonna separate the two at the bottom right there. Then push that hose up through the hood and pull it out at the top. Now we can go ahead and do the same thing over on the passenger side. And just like the heat blanket, that hose is held in with a bunch of push pins, trim panel removal tool to get those out of the way. So now we just have to remove the hood like I've said earlier. That is really, really easy. Two 10mm nuts on either side. We're gonna take one completely off and leave one, just a couple of threads on. Then you can grab a buddy, unthread the rest of that nut, and take the hood off the Mustang. Now, one thing I like to do just in case is I like to throw a rag sort of in between the hood and the glass right here, just in case. Usually they don't slide that far, but you know, don't want to scratch up the car. Now you can grab a friend. So before we completely ditch that factory hood, a couple of things we are gonna need to scavenge. First things first, this bar is gonna be for our latch. That is gonna transfer over. It's held on with two 10mm nuts. And then we can pull that off. The second thing we're gonna have to scavenge is this big seal up by the windshield. Now, one thing I do recommend is if you have a thin mouth trim panel removal tool, that is gonna work the best for something like this. Otherwise, you'll just pull the push pin right out of the rubber. Another thing we're also gonna need to take is these seals right here. There's two of them. They're right above the headlights. Now, in reverse order, we're just gonna put this all together on our new Cervini hood, which is what you're looking at right now. The next thing we're gonna drop right back on is that weather stripping up by the windshield. Couple of things I do wanna say about this is the push pin spacing is a little bit different. You can see it gets a little bit tighter around these 5 right here. So you wanna make sure you have this lined up and not flipped 180 before you go ahead and drop these push pins in. Also, if you had this painted, likely these holes are gonna be painted over. You might need to drill those out a little bit. We sure did. So with all that said, we're gonna go ahead and get this started. Make sure that lines up. Then we come to this end, make sure that lines up. And we can drop in all the push pins in the middle. So the next thing we're gonna install is our hood latch. Now this is not symmetrical. As you guys can see, if I hold it up like that, you can see that this side is kind of bent out a little bit. That's gonna be your leading edge. You wanna make sure that is toward the front of the hood, and the kit gives you 2 brand new 10mm bolts to secure that with. And there is a little bit of play in this, so what we're gonna do is line it up as I tighten it down. This might need some further adjustment later on as well. While we have this flipped over, we're gonna go ahead and remove the 4 10mm bolts that are eventually gonna hold this to the hinges as well. So now that we have our Cervini hood all prepped and ready to go on our Mustang, I figured now would be the perfect time to bring back our factory hood, put the two next to each other, and draw a small comparison. Now the biggest difference between these two is going to be that cowl induction, 4-inch cowl. That's going to give you a lot more room in the engine bay to go with forced induction. This factory hood flat across the top, that is going to limit your space if you do want to go that route. That is not the only styling feature I like about the Cervini though. This area right here, you can see this body line sort of curves in and gives that little bit of a hip to it. I was never a really big fan of that as an 18 GT owner. I think the Cervini improves on that look with the straight body line all the way to the front. That's just something small that I noticed that I like about the Cervini. We are losing the heat extractors, so that is a little bit of difference in terms of styling. So next up, let's talk about materials used. Factory hood, this is aluminum. Cervini, that is gonna be fiberglass. I think the fiberglass is very, and I mean really slightly lighter. It's gonna be a really small difference. If you really wanted to go with weight savings, you could pick up some carbon fiber options. That's what I recommend, but again, weight savings is always worth noting. Some similarities between these two, again, you just saw us transfer over the latch, the weather stripping, the headlight seals, all that stuff is gonna be the exact same as the factory hood. So without any further ado, we're gonna take our Cervini hood back to our Mustang here. We're gonna need the 10mm bolts that we removed earlier, and we can get this mounted up to our brackets. So now we're just gonna tighten this down. If I wiggle this around a bit, you can kind of see the outline of where the washers used to be. So in order to get this lined up right, we're just gonna line up our new ones and use the 10mm to tighten it down. And we're gonna do the same thing over here on the other side. So now that we have the hood vaguely where it's going to stay, we can go ahead and do the sprayer nozzles, and they're gonna slide in through this hidden channel right here. We're just gonna work that all the way across. Sometimes that will work out of the gate. Other times you'll have to take it back out. If you look on the underside of this sort of 90-degree angle, you can see this collar here. If you peel that back a little bit, it'll actually allow you to separate those two. It's a little bit easier to get this fed through without that there. And same thing goes for this one. Peel back on that collar. That'll separate right there. Now, once that's fed through, you can come to these rectangles right here. If you reach in, you can actually pull that up. Now we're gonna take that hose that we just disconnected. I'm gonna feed that through first. You can see that's gonna pop out right there. Grab that one more time. And then we can reconnect these two. Like that. And that's one side pretty much done. Here's the other side right there. We're just gonna do the same thing. Hold on to that with one hand. Feed the sprayer through with the other. And then come up here and click these two together. And on both of those, we can actually reconnect the jet. And that is going to push in right like it was on the factory. And we can feed that up. And that is going to meet up with this hole right here. Click in right there. And we're gonna hit the same thing over here on the driver's side. Now the last thing we're gonna do here is very gently close the hood. Make sure our panel gaps are okay. Nothing's hitting. And we're actually looking pretty good. Gonna push this closed. That's gonna be it. That's gonna do it for my review and install of the Cervini 4-inch Cowl Hood, unpainted, fitting all 18 and newer GTs and EcoBoost. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I'm Joe. Keep it right here at American Muscle for all things Mustang.